Andy, welcome to Unlock. Thank you so much for coming on. Your story is phenomenal. It's exciting. And I couldn't wait to have you on. I've been pestering you for months, actually, to come on, before Wayne, and you finally agreed you could fit me in, which I appreciate. So if it's all right, what we're really going to talk about, what is the most exciting bit for me that I think the viewers are going to find the most exciting, is you was protecting Supergrass, Damon Alvin in court.
Correct.
But before we get to that, let's talk a bit about your history. So you was in the army before the police force. You was armed response or armed. Again, I'll let you explain exactly what you did. But if you want to go back to maybe your childhood or where, what made you go in the army, and then tell us about the army and then your surveillance. There's so much to talk about.
Yeah.
Let's just start. I'll let you start with whatever you want.
So I joined the army 27th of October 1987, and I was inspired because of the Falklands War that happened in 92. Originally, I wanted to be a paratrooper, but my granddad and my dad, when my granddad was alive, were electrical contractors. They said, no, we want you to get a trade. So in the end, I fought and carried on going back to the centre in Brittlewell to join the Royal Engineers. So in the end, I eventually got enough marks to join the Royal Engineers. So I joined up as a junior leader. So the ripe old age of 16, literally fresh out of school. As I say, I turned up at Old Park Barracks in Kent on 27th of October 1987.
What's a junior leader? Sorry.
So it basically, prior to actually being a regular soldier, you learn to be a leader, and you spend a year of basically getting beasted. Back then, It was like hell. The first day I got in there, I marched in. Well, I didn't march in the camp. I bimbled in the camp. All right, mate. I'm not your fucking mate. And obviously, oh goodness. And then
a sharp.
Yeah. And then the first parade, first day, have you shaven today? No, mate. No, mate, I'm your corporal. And back then, my people that were training me were ex-Falk. So there was a corporal there whose special forces had fought in the Falkland Islands. So, he didn't give us any favours, and he was quite tough on us. But the reason why he was tough on us, and I'll talk to you why I understand he was tough on us, because he wanted us to be the best soldiers that we could be.
Right.
So I did a year as a junior leader. Passed out of Old Park Barracks as a junior leader, and then you then go on to the regular army. So I then went on to be a combat engineer, went through Gibraltar Barracks to be a combat engineer, learning to blow shit up, learning to bomb disposal, water purification, driving boats. So there's basically building bridges, blowing bridges up. So there's all them sort of things being a combat engineer. So
how old were you at this point of being a
17.
17 blowing shit up?
Yeah. So
that's an experience, right?
I loved it. I couldn't think of anything better as a 17-year-old.
Yeah, of course.
Being on the streets with your mates or blowing shit up. Well, I'll go and blow shit up.
Yeah, of course.
And then once I passed that, the course, I then deployed to Germany, BAOR, British Army of the Rhine. And I was in a squadron called 12 Squadron, 2-5 Engineer Regiment. I was in the Roberts Barracks. And I was there for about a year and a half, but that was tough. It was like the land army, and back then, as a young boy in the field army, it was really tough, and we got bullied, big time bullied.
So bullied by basically anyone above
the corporals, the lance corporals, because I understand it now. I understand the ethos of it, because they wanted you to be a good, solid soldier.
Yeah, you got to be able to take resilience. I guess.
Yeah, especially in Germany.
Yeah.
But when I say bully, there's a very fine line between bullying and severe discipline.
Yeah.
And they want to make sure that you're a intricate part of the section to be able to go to war, basically. And obviously, us out in BAOR was because of the Russians.
Yeah.
Which, I don't mind saying it, are a load of shit, and I worked with them in Kosovo, and they're awful. Right. They're always pointing guns at me, and whatever. But we could talk about my military for the whole hour, so obviously I'll move on. So I was out in Germany, really good experience. I really enjoyed my time out there, and then I come back to the UK, and then did another course, which was my carpentry and joinery course, and that was during the time of the Gulf War, the first Gulf War then. But before I left there, we sprayed all the vehicles up for another 2-1 Engineer Regiment, sprayed them all up sand-coloured, ready for them to go out to war. And I was gutted because I wanted to go to war. That's what you join the army for.
Yeah. Okay.
So they sent me back to UK to do my chippy course at Brompton Barracks.
Is that bizarre to do a chip? I've never heard that before. To do a chippy course within the army, you just like you said, you've gone from blowing shit up to
So as a Royal Engineer, sapper as I was, you were first an infantryman, then you was combat engineer, and then you would have another trade. So you could be driver, electrician, carpenter and joiner, paint and finisher, bricklayer. So basically, in war zones, you've got all these different tradesmen, and you know, throughout the rest of my career then, I deployed as a section commander in the jungles of Belize. Wow. I was out in Saudi Arabia doing chippy work and changing locks. I spent time in South Georgia and Antarctica for a year. I did 2 tours out there as a carpenter and joiner. But so infantryman, combat engineer, carpenter and joiner. In Kosovo, I was carpenter and joiner, and we built the air traffic control after we'd blown it up when we was in Corsica.
Mad.
So that, that's basically what I did. And then I went on from, so going forward, I then was bomb disposal. I spent a while at a unit called Battlefield Area Clearance, and I spent a year there. And that was basically homeland, so the mines up in Norfolk, for the beach landings when there was a high tide that had washed all the stones away and it showed a load of mines. So I was the Lance Corporal then there that used to look after all the locators and all the bomb disposal stuff and drive the bosses around, which was a really good posting that I really enjoyed. And then from there, I went on to training regiments. So I was at Basinbourne from 1996 to 99, training, I think, over 400 recruits. And that was the time of my life because I was passionate about it. And for the recruits that probably will watch this, I still talk to a lot of my recruits now, and a lot of them have done really well. A lot have joined the SAS. I've got recruits that are now full colonels in the army, so I've clearly done something right.
Wow.
But I trained over 400 recruits when I was at Basinbourne. And then I left in 2000. So going forward, obviously, there's loads more to talk about the army, but I can say that for another day.
But so before we do move on past that, so your total time in the army was what?
Just under 14 years, 12 years man service plus boy service. So I've got, I had pension that I commuted over, which was the 12 years man service, if that makes sense. So I always say to people, I did 14 years, but it was just under the 14 years, 13 years and 200 if I'm being...
And what made you leave? Like what?
Hindsight's a good thing. And I think in hindsight, I wish I'd never left the army.
Yeah.
However, at the time, young, dumb, and all that, I
knew the next sentence, by the way. But I'm glad. I like the way you skipped over it.
Young and dumb. I thought I'd fancied a change, and I wanted to join the police service. Wow. So, and my ambition was then to be a specialist police officer. So that's what I always had fancied, and I was always, because of what had gone on in the army, and obviously when the IRA were out in Germany, and we'd had people IRA blowing up. One of the camps I was at when we was in the IRA were known there. Yeah. We had sleepers out in Osnabrück, who Donna Maguire, her name was, who was basically honey trapping and then getting information out of us when they was going. It's got a nightclub called Broadways, and then I was driving home one weekend going through Ostend, and Sergeant Major the weekend before I'd gone home had been shot by the IRA. So overnight they stopped us all going out and changed our number plates that were white and black, British Forces Germany, you might even remember that, to like the number plates like you'd get in UK, so we didn't stand out as British Forces Germany.
Wow.
So
at that moment in time, or at that period in your life, you're like, okay, the police force seems like, forget hindsight, but at that moment in time, you're like, okay, police force is a good career move, right? Yeah. But you're going from something you loved into the unknown, but you kind of know enough that you want to join, basically.
Yeah, and I wanted a challenge. So the week that I handed in my notice and signed off, the commanding officer, you get grade, and I'm going to sound really big-headed here. No, but I was getting O grade, so you could get A1, A2. Yeah. O grade is outstanding, and within a regiment of 1,500 soldiers, there'd only be 6 O grades that would be given out. Right. So I was doing well for myself. And when I signed off, my commanding officer, Colonel Rose, actually said, if you stay on, even though I was doing acting sergeant in the troop that I was doing at training regiments, and I would get promoted to sergeant. But by then I'd made up my mind, and almost in my mind had moved on to thinking of joining to be a police officer, and the best police officer that I physically could.
Yeah, okay. So your mindset had completely shifted.
Yeah.
It was like, and you'd made the decision, and
Yep.
obviously you went through with it. You become a police officer in 2000.
In 2000, and strange enough, I was actually still in the army while I
Okay.
was doing my training down at Ashford.
Right.
Which is, I was getting two, I remember getting two wages, and back then in 2000 it was quite good. So I was getting my army wage, and the day that I passed off the square at Ashford, because you have a big pass-off parade, I was the drill leader, the 8th of February 2000, was the same day that basically my military career finished.
Right,
So
okay.
it was a really bittersweet day. I was pleased that I passed out of training at Ashford, and yet I was like, I'm leaving my army family behind.
Yeah. And it was a family, wasn't it? Like
Massively.
The army's very tight, isn't it?
And I still speak to loads of my squaddy mates now.
Yeah.
My first mate, I still speak to him now.
Which is awesome.
The day I joined in October 1987, him and his partner.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so let's get into it. You then go and join the police.
Yep. I joined the police, and I went through Ashford, went through Chelmsford, started off at Basildon on a thing called DRG, Divisional Response Group. So it was all fast and hard, driving around, nicking people, putting them in custody.
Right.
And then the other people deal with them, which was good. And that was my sort of thing that I enjoyed, really. And I know I always tried to be the best police officer I could.
Yeah.
If I was going to do it, I'm not going to go half-hearted, passionate about it. So I will blow my own trumpet. In 2002, and probably some of the viewers that see this from Essex Police, I won Probation of the Year.
Oh, wow. Okay.
In
Congratulations.
2000. Well, I've still got the award, but it's a bit dusty now at the back of the cupboard. But I won Probation of the Year. And so my probation finished, and I got Probation of the Year and was put up for the national awards against all the other counties across the whole country. So
Right.
I actually went up and met with David Blunkett at Threadneedle Street, and there was a big thing to get awards through Jane's. It was a big thing, but I didn't win it. I think a Metropolitan Police officer won it because he saved some druggie's life. But through me, it was the amount of arrests I had and the rapport that I had people, and it was that kind of
Still
thing.
a massive credit at that point.
Yeah,
Regardless.
and I was proud of that at that
of course.
time, and there was a lot of people that I joined up with. It was like, well, why has Andy Copley got it? I should have won that. But again, the same was when I left Gibraltar Barracks. I got best recruit.
Right.
I didn't do it to arse-lick. I did it because if I'm going to do a job, I'm going to do the best that I can.
Yeah.
I don't care what other people think of me. I'm passionate about whatever I do.
Right.
And that's I won best recruit, and then I've got Probation of the Year in 2002.
Wow.
I should have brought my award, shouldn't I? Just
You could have had it like front and centre.
But that's that. Yeah. So that was my set in stone going forward, and then I went on to a tactical team at Basildon, which is called a TAC team, and I was like, it was anti-drugs, anti-gangs, and fighting the lines basically.
Okay.
But it was more small fry than the top end because being a TAC team out of Basildon, it's all the people around Chalverdon and Felmores and all that sort of thing.
Right.
And then in 2004, the end of 2004, I applied to join a unit called the Full Support Unit, which specialise in firearms, counter-terrorism.
And the TAC, sorry, just for anyone watching, the TAC team isn't that, is it? That's no firearms, that's literally just...
No, but although we were surveillance trained, we was only... So you have level 1 surveillance and level 2 surveillance. Level 2 surveillance is purely footwork. So we'd be able to go down to Basildon High Street, for instance, and we might follow one of our known shoplifters or drug dealers and just follow them off loosely, and then keep an eye on them, and then at the given time, if we see them nicking or dealing drugs, then we would pounce and proper overreact.
But nothing as exciting as what comes next.
No. So then I applied to join the unit, the Full Support Unit up at Boreham. And it was quite a gruelling process, actually, because not only did you have to do firearms, you had to do, you had to apply in the first place. And back then, they had to like you, because if you didn't fit, you was never getting on that unit anyway. Okay. And then once you'd got through that process, so it was a paper sift and interview, and if you got through that process, then you was put on a firearms course. And if you passed that, you then did a driving course, an advanced Class 1 driving course. If you then passed that, you then did a surveillance course. And at any point you failed these, you'd have been booted off the Full Support Unit. So there was a lot to get to.
It's like stages, basically, for
and
viewers.
Generally,
stages.
the Full Support Unit was the best coppers in the country.
Right.
Because you had so many skills. So I got through all of those. I did, obviously, my interview, the paper sift, firearms course that I passed. my driving course that I passed, my surveillance course, which was tough because that's a 10-week course in the police. So we're going from level 2, which is just foot surveillance, to level 1, which is vehicular surveillance. So you're actually following, and you'll have like a 5-car team, a motorbike and a van, which is in a team following one person. So there's a lot more involved there.
Yeah.
And then from then on, so I was then trained in other weapons as well. So nowadays I think they call them SFO, Specialist Firearms Officers.
Yeah.
But I think for the purpose of that, we was, at the early stages, SFO, Specialist, because we was trained with shotguns, we was trained with the rounds that we could fire and shoot out tyres, we was trained with baton guns, we had riflemen that used the long barrel weapons. I was a crops officer, so I used, in the end, a G36K, which is a long barrelled one with a tripod, so which I'll talk about in a minute.
I was going to say, we've got to get into that.
So yeah, that's what we was trained to do. And yeah, we would, so it is no secret now, when the de Menzies kicked off, remember Charles de Menzies, I deployed with another team up to London after he'd been taken out on the underground on standby, ready to move forward. And back then we'd been trained to provide the medulla shot. So the medulla shot is there's a bit of sponge at the top of the spine, and you take it out from the front at the top of the spine there. So we was actually training on the ranges, point blank, target return, and they'd say red dot, so as you return.
So is that like a long distance shot, or is that up close, or it doesn't matter? Because surely if you're, so again, visually, I'm picturing you laying down with a tripod, and you're like, or is it? It's literally it doesn't matter where you are. You've just got to get that shot off.
No, this one is ramming the gun in the face.
Oh wow!
And shooting under the nose.
So if you get to the point of, obviously this fascinates me, but if you get to the point where you're that close, you get to put a rifle into someone's face.
This is a handgun.
Oh, sorry, it's a handgun.
So it's the SIG Pro. However, we was also trained with the MP5 that we had special pouches for that. So when it's all kicked off and we had the IED-born terrorist, we would walk around Lakeside, Stansted and other train stations in civvies with a rucksack on with an MP5 machine gun on our back that we could swing over and then take out the marauding terrorists.
So I don't want to skip over this bit because
we never spoke to this before.
No, never. This is like, for me, I'm like, I get really excited. People are going to be watching this going, why is Matt like fucking grinning like a cat? It's the fault. So I just want to understand, and I'm sure the viewers are definitely going to understand. You get trained to get so close to an individual, whether they're a terrorist or whether they're bad, whatever the situation is, irrelevant. But you get trained to be that close. What was it called? The shot?
The medulla shot.
The medulla shot, right? So surely once you're there and you've got someone's face and the gun's there, surely they just give up. Like they don't go. Like what? Like,
it's not an option.
It's just you're trying to just put the fucking gun in their face and make sure you pull the trigger.
So back then, the Kratos was a secret operation that we trained in, and you would have different code words. Right. So there was different code words for different things. Now the only code word that sticks in my mind is Jupiter, and Jupiter is the critical shot, which they stopped that because of the de Menzies, because the I can't think of her name at the moment. The one who was in command, Cressa Dix, they accused her that she had called the shots, but she didn't. She said stop the person, but obviously the Chinese whisper, the SFOs, Specialist Firearms Officers, believed that they were saying stop him, so that's why obviously. But no, our training actually when we was on the ranges was you'd have a figure 11 target, a target which we used to use in the army, and we'd have 4 dots, red, black, yellow, blue, and as the target would turn, it was a 2-man job. As it literally turned, they'd say red dot, so you'd then draw with a cross holster or whatever holster pancake holster, whatever gun you decided to have on. I used to have a pancake holster, so it'd be cross draw, obviously covert, and then you'd literally ram the gun touching the dot, and then you would fire until the target turned. So it might be 1 shot, or you might fire 4 shots. Yeah. If you had a stoppage, your oppo's on your shoulder, and you'd fire over your shoulder. So we had to do that because obviously, bearing in mind this is for IED-born improvised explosives device. Born terrorists, so the most dangerous people that are carrying a bomb that's going to blow up society.
I was going to say it can wipe out a big number of people.
Yeah,
right?
Going on from that, which we'll talk later, but I'm a BDO now, behavioural detection operative, so I still do things like that now.
Right. Except for not shooting people in the face.
No, I don't carry a gun now. Yeah, I can't carry a gun now.
Yeah. All right, so Okay, so now you're an armed response. You're there. You've fulfilled your dream. You've hit your target. Like what then? Like what?
So within the full support unit, you could do different things. So we had dynamic intervention where they'd train with the special forces, going on planes and things like that. So they would do, house attacks, and like you see with all the respirators on, you'd have riflemen. So within that unit, we'd have specialist trained people. So I went down the road of being a crops officer. I was also a marine officer because of my skills from the army. So I used to operate the ribs out Burnham as well, and used to all patrol around. But that was a part-time basis because there was a shortfall of trained people. But I love that as well.
Yeah.
But so my next skill that I then learned as the top up was to be a covert rural observation officer, which was my skills from the army, where I used to teach tactics, and it was a natural progression for me, wearing green and camouflage and shitting in plastic bags and just hard routine.
So this is a real thing. Shitting in bags while you're surveillance. This is a real thing. You've got to. So obviously, if someone like me, I think, if I was doing surveillance as a general public, I'd be like, I'd have to go find a toilet or go eat. Like, you can't do any of that. Everything you do, you can't take your eyes off of the subject, I guess. Would that be the correct term?
It depends. Some of the stuff that I've done, I might. So you would get given an objective. It may be that you deploy 24 hours before they're going to do an armed strike on a property. So you'd get in place. You then start updating the tactical advisor, saying, "Yeah, we've got movement here." Or, back then there was a thing called an IMSI grabber. So, which basically would grab, not knowing, but you would know that handset is in the property. So we might have an IMSI grabber with us that we deploy, so we know that handset's in there. Not saying the person's there, but we know that they were there. We would watch, and then I'd be updating the tactical advisor.
So how? All right, I've got to ask this because again, I think the viewers are going to find this fascinating. How the fuck do you hide if you're in public? How do you hide? Stay hidden. Obviously, you're staying hidden from the person, or do you call it a subject? What do you call it?
Subject.
The subject. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So you've got to remain out of sight from them. But how do you do that? But still, if you're in the public, if you're in the street, you can't hide in the street, shit in a paper bag and lob it.
No. So
one
I can talk about is we deployed behind. What's his name? All right, at the back there. What's his name? Michael. What's his? He was a famous person,
right?
Who Stuart Lubbock got killed in his swimming pool. Michael Barrymore.
Right. Okay. Now I know. Yeah. Okay.
So
I'm with you.
That might be cut for their word, but I deployed on Michael Barrymore at Mill Hill.
Because the guy died in his home
Stuart
swimming
Lubbock
pool,
died apparently with severe anal injuries, which I think was a thermometer shoved up his arse.
Wow.
What they wanted to prove was that Michael Barrymore was still whatever he was doing.
Right.
So on that job, because it was a prolonged operation, they threw me in the back of an OP van, observation post van, and I could spend extended periods on my own, whether it be heat, cold. That's one of the things that as a crops officer that you're taught to overcome. Lack of sleep. I think my longest deployment without sleeping was 34 hours. In fact, on my course, I did 36 hours with no sleep. Wow. You do start to hallucinate, but train hard, fight easy. So, on my course, that was the longest I went without sleep deprivation. Yeah. They had a post in the ground and you wasn't allowed to stand up. You wasn't allowed to be no more than an arm's length from it. You had to shit. We eat at that distance while keeping an eye on a car, and literally within that 36 hours I think we had one movement on the car where the hazards went and people approached it, and that was like 12, 13 hours in, but you had to then write it on your log to prove that you've stayed awake for the rest of it. Does it make sense?
Which surely that's really detrimental, because surely that would impact or impair your judgment, impair your decision making, surely the shift pattern would be much better, like 4 or 5 hours, but because you've got to be 100%, haven't you?
Yeah, but
so how can you be 100%? Whether you've had training or not, how do you maintain 100%?
because that's what so when I did my crops course, they would do things like, for instance, when we'd done 34 hours, we'd come straight out the OP,
Right.
and then they put me down a manhole to see if I was claustrophobic. But I was tired, so I literally went down the manhole.
Went to sleep.
and went to sleep. And I was down there 40 minutes, I don't know.
Oh, you actually fell asleep? I was joking.
No, yeah.
Oh,
There's no
fucking hell.
point, but obviously some people are going to get claustrophobic.
Panic.
They put us in the back of a car, in the boot of a car, because they, some of the that might be that you're doing OP out the back of a car. So they would also put you in a bush and get an attack dog barking at you. And obviously there's tactics, which I've used in the private sector since, not what to do. And obviously with an attack dog, the best thing to do is lay down, put your head in the mud, hands under you, because the dog's going to think, what's he fucking doing? And even the most aggressive dog.
Yeah.
So we was trained to do all these things, and obviously understanding giving off pheromones. So, and I've been in situations where I've been hiding in the hedge line watching a top-end criminal, and they've been out walking the dog, and the dog's like, fucking shut up, it's only a rabbit. And you're like, no, there's a bloke laying in the bush with a handgun watching you.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Did you ever get pissed on by a dog?
Well, I have been pissed on. I was doing a robbery plot, and had a woman pissed literally directly in front of me. But again, so our training to pass the course as a crops officer, covert rural observation operative, you had to be, the instructors would give you 24, 30 hours to set up the OP in a wooded area. And I did a winter course, so they weren't a lot. So I had to do subterranean. So you'd have to dig in, export all your mud, take it all away, and then obviously dig in, put it in, and then put camouflage enough to. But they would want to be a metre away from you, i.e. from me to you, and not see you or any sign of human being. So that's the level that was working out in camouflage.
Wow.
So then I was confident enough to go out in the field and be in your back garden to watch you.
Yeah. Was you ever in my back garden watching
I
me?
was, yeah.
Several times.
But we'd also be trained to do nighttime photography or do CTRs, close target recce's. So it might be if we was going to do a job on your house, rather than the covert method of entry team going in, we would go there the night before and do a recce of your locks, so we know what locks to do to defeat locks and things like that. So, and some of the boys I was with did the lock picking course.
Yeah.
To be able to pick locks and go in and change things and change cocaine for powders and things like that. So it happened.
Wow, that is phenomenal. So how did you end up being assigned to protect Damon Alvin?
Here we go on to this bit. So obviously the murder of Dean occurred in, I think it was February 2000.
So let's just inform people. So this is based on effectively, let's simplify it and say the murder stroke execution of a guy called Dean Boschel that was known as a Supergrass, as an informant, and Damon Alvin Damon Alvin was arrested for it repeatedly, I think.
Twice.
And then he effectively turned Supergrass on a guy called Ricky Percival. And your job basically was to keep Damon Alvin alive for the trial.
Correct.
So he could continue to grass on Ricky. Because let's be honest, the police's main target was Ricky. It wasn't Damon. They didn't give a shit about Damon. So they offered him a deal and you had to protect him.
Yeah.
So talk us through it. How did that start? How did that come about?
The full support unit were then involved. So obviously up until then, there was a lot of covert stuff, I believe, and in my opinion, was going on. But then obviously when the trial starts, Ricky was in Belmarsh, I believe, at the time. So he was picked up daily by the team in a Jankel in the armoured car. So he'd have the armoured car, the brick as we called it, a car in front, car behind, and obviously they blew light all the way from the prison to the Chelmsford police station. Damon, on the other hand, because he had turned Queens, was...
Explain that, because...
So basically he was a Supergrass.
Yeah.
So even though he was nicked...
Why did you guys name it Queens? What is that? Because I've never heard that before.
That's basically because he's... Well, it'd be turned Kings now, wouldn't it? But, but it's basically when you're then a witness for the Crown. That's what I think it stands for.
Right,
so we used to call it Turns Queens because he's a super... We're not, as police, we're never going to say he's a grass. We don't do that. We always call them informants. But now in this world, he's a fucking grass.
Right.
That's the difference, isn't it?
Yeah. So he goes Supergrass, working for the government, effectively.
Yeah. So then what happens is we then get critical briefing. So we have a full IA March briefing, which is a specialist briefing, information, intention, methods, and all that. And we all specialise. We all break down into our different teams of exactly what we're going to do. Half the team were picking Ricky up in the armoured car, taking him to court, going back via the back entrance, where Damon was, it's known, South Wooden Ferries, where he was sat in a cell there, and I would drive there with one other in a backup car each day and picked him up and then took him in the back entrance to the court. So I was...
What was the fear, like, what was the... Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but what was the fear? Was it a fear from the police or fear for him? Like who makes that decision of the risk of his life?
So thinking about it, obviously, before coming on today, we don't question that because it's like impact factors and things like that. But Damon in the box in Chelmsford Crown Court used to wear body armour. I used to wear body armour.
Do you think that's more for entertainment, media value, or because
hindsight? I think so.
Because I'm not being funny. I don't remember, apart from Pat Tate, I think he escaped from court. But
on
apart
a
from
motorbike, didn't he?
But apart from that, I don't really know of anyone being shot in a fucking courtroom. Do you? Like, again, was it just for dramatics to make Ricky look bad, or do you think?
I think it was to make Ricky look bad. But you would have there, and it's not a secret tactic, but in the corridors where the judges would come on, you'd had AFOs, armed firearms officers, in the back corridor, literally behind the judge. So the risk assessment, and that's obviously not my department, was quite high.
Right.
So there was a probable threat, or now was it the fact that it was all showmanship to make Ricky look bad?
Yeah, got you.
I don't actually know, but I know that I had a handgun when I was picking him up from South Wooden Ferries.
Yeah.
I always believe I had my handgun on me, but I think I used to safe it because obviously I'm actually in the courtroom. My job then is to look after Damon. But when he was actually in the box with his body armour on, I was sat directly behind him.
Right.
So when he gave evidence during that trial, I was sat directly behind him. And then when he used to go down back to the cells, obviously during lunch breaks and things like that, I would then go down and sit with him in the... So he had his cell, but he never sat in his cell. We was told to sit in this other room on this... So as you go into the room, the sofa, there was a sink there, and Damon would sit there and I'd sit next to him.
So at the time, I know your mindset's very different now, and I don't want to lean towards where you're at the minute. I want to really just think about where you was at the time. Do you feel like it was some sort of conditioning that's part of the process to condition into making him feel more of a friend, like, so he would open up, so like, like to keep him sweet, so he carried on testifying against Rick? Because ultimately what the viewers may or may not know, because obviously there's a film out about it, there's loads of articles and loads of, there's a lot of publicity around this case. Basically the police, and again, this is only partly what I've read, what I've been told, etc. But the police basically nicked Damon and went, Damon, if you just say it was Ricky, you can have all your money, all the illegal stuff you've earned and blah, 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 and we'll give you a new house, a new identity, blah, blah, blah. All you've got to do is 100% make sure you say it was Ricky, and that's it. So you've got to point the finger at Ricky and you get to go home and be with your family. Effectively, that's pretty much what is the, we could say, street version. I don't know, some of it's in the papers, some of it's in books and films and whatever, but effectively that's what's known of the situation. Would you say that's why he was looked after so well? Like, he didn't have to go to his cell? Do you think it was so that it made, like, it cemented him being able to just go, oh, I'm being looked after, I'm good? Does that make sense?
I think so. And I think you hit the nail on the head there, that wrongly I thought he was innocent, because he's got to be innocent, because he's sitting in South Wooden Ferries and I'm looking after him, taking him to and from court every day, while Ricky...
So you genuinely thought he was innocent because of what you were being told?
We're almost being groomed as well, aren't we?
Yes,
you know,
yeah, I would agree with that.
Damon is our Supergrass, super informant giving queens, so he must be looked after. So, for instance, lunchtime, you know, I'd get a subsistence every day. What do you want, Damon? Oh, I'd like this. And he liked tuna salad rolls, I believe, and other. So I'd go out every day, get it for him, come back, and he'd sit and enjoy that. He was getting looked after. He'd like have fish and chips at Southwood and Ferries in his little cell. His cell was set up quite nice, and I do remember, and I know that it's been spoken about, but there was loads of paperwork and post-its because he was constantly reading paperwork. I know that.
But he's got to be but he must have been given that paperwork by. Not, it can't have just been the solicitor, because obviously you can only see a solicitor so many times, but if he's working with, is he working with the police or the prosecution at that point?
So for Queens, when you turn Queens to be a Supergrass, not that we call it that in the police world, you call him, I was turning Queens, you have to basically disclose everything, every crime that you've committed to basically cleanse yourself of all this. So he had to give up all, and
How much stuff did he give up about himself that effectively would have landed him in prison probably forever?
So there was things that come up that he'd admitted to, and on one particular day, and I know we said we weren't going to talk about it until it was live, and one of those was one day we was sitting there and talking, because I was talking with him, spending 12 hours a day with Damon, talking to him. And one of the days, so when you have a debrief, you have to tell of absolutely everything, every crime you've ever committed, because you're cleansing yourself when you go into witness protection. And one particular day, he had realised that he hadn't given information up about a shooting in Rochford, where he and Ricky were together, and they were popping. Or Damon was shooting at the arse of the ticket person giving out tickets, and he was shooting out the window with an air rifle, shooting him in the arse.
Oh,
and
I thought you meant a proper shotgun.
No. It was an air rifle.
Just an air rifle,
but
right, okay.
I mean, it's still obviously can bloody hurt getting an air slug in your arse.
Nice.
But he'd forgot to tell the debrief team about that.
Right, okay.
So I then had to then at the end of the day, because I always got debriefed, I then had to go back at the end of the day and tell them what I'd known, but they already knew this. They had already known what's gone on. But yeah, so Damon's like, shit, I forgot to tell them about this. So
it's almost like confession with a priest. If you're going to turn,
he had to tell everything.
Wow. So when he's telling everything, and he's obviously, I don't know if befriending's too strong a word here, but let's maybe befriending in a professional sense for you, because you're not mates with him, you're not going to go down a pub with him because he's going to, effectively he might have been going to jail, but I don't, he could have just.
Felt almost that I was becoming friends with him, because every day, Damon, how you doing?
You get to know.
I know about him. I know his life, because that's all being laid out in the courtroom.
Yep.
But also you're led to believe, I mean, we're mates, but you're almost led to believe that he's becoming a friend. Does that make sense? And, because I've not seen the criminal side of him, because we're in a secure environment. I've got the advantage, I've got loads of firearms officers around me, but Damon's not a threat anymore, because he's with me, I'm the one in charge, or the police are the ones in charge. Yeah. But he's playing the game then, because he doesn't want to go to prison for life.
I was just about to ask you, do you feel like, and again, I know I didn't want to go now, to who you are now and the things that have happened after, because obviously you have a very different view of it, but we will get to that. But I've got to ask, because I think it's at the right time, do you feel like, obviously he was using the system to his advantage, but you can see that even if you were there to now, but do you feel like he was manipulating you and the police in general?
Without a shadow of a doubt.
Right.
Damon is a very intelligent man.
Super intelligent.
And no disrespect to Ricky, and this is nothing going against Ricky, Damon in that relationship of Ronnie and Reggie, or however you want to call it, was the intelligent one.
Academic. So again, I don't want to disagree with you, but I do want to make a point. I would say academically, because Ricky was dyslexic.
Yeah.
So academically, and obviously from Ricky's point of view and Damon's point of view, Damon knew what he was doing. Ricky had no clue it was coming, did he?
No.
At any point.
No.
I think it was like, again, I could have this completely wrong, so I apologise to anyone. I don't want loads of comments going, you fucking don't know what you're talking about. But from what I know, Ricky got told literally the day before that Damon was turning. I don't think it wasn't like he had 3 months heads up, was it? It was literally Damon just got a deal offered and he went, fuck it, all right, yeah, it was all Rick. And then, but Damon had already had all the paperwork to know what he was going to say. So he made sure his wording in court matched the paperwork
And that
Is
was
that accurate?
that's
would you
true,
say?
and that was a disadvantage for Ricky.
Of course,
because
exactly,
Damon was intelligent academically, and he
Yes.
was able to read up and read up and read up and study it.
Yeah.
Now, you know, if I wanted to say, I would just read up and read up and read up of it, and I could be a brain surgeon if I kept reading up and reading up of it.
Of course, yeah.
couldn't I?
Yeah.
Academically,
You can become qualified.
Oh,
Or
yeah,
you're
exactly.
qualified in whatever it is you're about
I'm
to
not
talk
saying that
about.
I'd be able to do brain surgery, but
No.
I'd be able to talk about all the intricate parts and and all
You'd
that
be
sort
able
of
to
thing.
make a jury believe what you're saying.
Exactly
Is
that.
effectively
And
the
I
goal,
think
wasn't it?
That's what he'd done. Because let's face it, he was he'd been arrested twice. I know that side of it. He had also been in prison with Dean, hadn't he? And that's
Yes.
how they. And I know, which was again in the court, so it's open. It's open comments that Dean thought really highly and looked up to Damon massively as like a big brother.
Right.
And I think Damon used that to his advantage as his little botty boy.
Again, manipulating. isn't it?
It groomed
Yeah.
him because Damon was intelligent there. Now, obviously, my focus was on Damon and not Ricky,
Yeah.
and obviously with the murder in Manchester Drive. So I heard a lot about Damon and the things that were being said, but I was almost being groomed as well because that's the position I was in. I was there to protect him. I was there to take him to and from court, from South Woodland Ferries to Chelmsford Crown Court, sit with him, buy his food, listen to what he's saying. Then I got debriefed at the end of every single day. They already knew what was going. So,
Yeah.
in my opinion, that where we were sat was bugged as well. And why would it not be when you've
Yeah.
got a person turning Queens or in this world, Supergrass?
So it again, just to make it clear for everybody watching, you're giving information back on like what Damon's telling you because that's your debrief, and then they already know what's being said. So it's bugged because if they know what's said, there's only one person that knows. Well, two people that know, you and Damon.
Yeah.
So again, it's just. Does that make you feel uncomfortable at the time? I know if you look at it now, I know what you would say, but
Not at the time because you believe you're doing the best and
Yeah.
you're doing the right thing for the country by putting dangerous people away. Now that's no slur to Ricky
No.
because
Yeah.
since I've looked at it and had years and years to think about it, I've a different view on all this now, a very different view of
Yeah.
what's gone on. And obviously I can cross-reference to the Pat Tate murders, which obviously is being done and people are getting out now. But, you had Nichols, didn't you? Darren Nichols, who was the Supergrass there, and they relied on his evidence only. And that's the same in this case. They relied solely on a man that had been found a couple of years previous with a kilogram of pure cocaine with £34,000 hidden in his washing machine that had been nicked twice for murder, that then he's giving evidence against, and also his phone was cell-sighted at Manchester Drive, and now he's turned Queens, or Supergrass as we refer to it now, against somebody that they don't have the evidence for,
yeah,
i.e. Ricky.
And that's what I was going to get to next was there really was, from what I know, and again, I don't have all the details, but there was no evidence against Ricky, but they solely relied on a testimony of Damon, and that bit for me is a pattern by the police that they use. That's a tactic they use very often. I personally, and I'm going to say this because I've obviously read the book where Dean Boschell's mum, the guy that was murdered, executed, murdered, whatever way you look at it, and even she is going to say what I said, so I'm going to repeat basically her words in the book. Was that she doesn't believe putting a gun to someone else's head to say he did it and you can live is the correct way. So that's effectively what the police do. They go, well, not really after you, even though we've got all the evidence in the world against you for so many different crimes and whatever, but then the police go, don't really fancy nicking you. It's almost like it's like an opinion, which is, my opinion, is dangerous. To have an opinion, to be able to be biased in the police. Surely you've got to go with evidence and not someone else's word, because that's so dangerous for people's lives, effectively, isn't it? Because Ricky's been locked away for, I think it's like 18 years. It was the same time I had my accident. So I think it was 2006, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so in 2006... And that 18 years for me has flown by. Rick, I'm not sure so much has flown by, but I know he's appealed, and there's always new evidence coming to light. But basically, my point of it is, do you think, not based on who you've become today or where you are now, mindset-wise, but even back then, now you have the information, do you think it's okay or right that the police get to do that?
No.
It's almost abuse of power, isn't it?
And so I put a scenario.
Okay.
If Damon hadn't turned Queens, or Supergrass as we now refer to, would Ricky and Damon have been convicted of Dean's murder?
They wouldn't.
So, however, it's still a gamble going on trial for the 6 weeks or whatever it was, up for murder. And actually, it's a more serious degree of murder because Dean was a police informant. So when somebody who's a police informant gets murdered, then it's the same as killing a police officer. Does that make sense?
Just about to ask you that. So if you're an informant for the police, are you one of them then? Effectively, but not quite. But if something bad happens,
there's a sliding scale.
Yeah.
And it's my understanding, Matt, that if you kill a police informant, then obviously you're going to get a longer sentence. I mean, obviously there's other people that for murder that haven't had so much of, Ricky got 28 years, I think, wasn't it, before he can even...
Yeah, before he can
even apply for.
Yeah.
So I think Damon was there, his arse was twitching, and he thought, do you know what, if I then say this, it's going to put me totally clear, and I'll then go into obviously the new identity thing and the protection service and all that. But it means that I'm clear and I'll get protected forever and a day.
So again, I don't know if the viewers are going to agree, but it's fucking wrong. Like look
at the Pat Tate again. I know we're bouncing off it, but the Pat Tate 3, the Range Rover murders. It was solely based on Darren Nichols'
one person
evidence, who was turned Supergrass, There's other companies, TMI, Dave McKelvey, which again, he'll probably be seeing this. He's fought and shown that it wasn't Holmes and Steele. It wasn't them two.
They were they were professional killings. They were tap killings, if that makes sense.
I
know you know what that means, but we were having a discussion before about taps.
Yeah, it was without a shadow of a doubt.
Fucking professional.
It was planned,
full on planned professional.
There was a professional hit.
So this is just your opinion. So I want to make that very clear. Everybody, this is just an opinion.
Yeah.
From your expert opinion, I'm not saying, do you know who did it, like exactly the person, but would you say, because it's just fascinating. It doesn't, you're not right or wrong. No one's right or wrong. No one's ever going to know, except for the 3 people that were there, and they can't tell us. So in that scenario, would you say it was professional as in, it could be, I don't want to say police related, but someone with that skill set? Or do you think, no, it does actually look like gangland?
I think Ricky was starting to be the thorn in the side of the police service because of his position, and it's known that he was dealing in importing drugs. I wasn't so aware of that because I was dealing with Damon.
This is what you heard in the trial?
Yeah. Okay. That's in the trial. Okay. And I think Ricky was the up-and-coming Pat Tate, Roger and Rennie Cray. I think Damon and Ricky was referred to sometimes because they was up-and-coming. They were young men and almost a threat to the criminal fraternity. And I think with the fact they saw Ricky as a bigger threat, the fact that Damon is very academically intelligent, well, let's jump on that. Because at the end of the day, they've detected a murder.
Yeah.
Rather than the murder being undetected, we've got a man, that's it, case closed. The case is closed because Ricky is now serving a life sentence for the murder of Dean Boschelle. Yeah. Off the back of Damon Alvin, who, again, it was spoken in court, his mobile phone was tracked to Manchester Drive on that night. He changes his story after reading all the paperwork, and he actually admits being there, but just says, I don't pull the trigger. Now, another thing for me, I believe, and in my opinion, that Damon was there. Furthermore, Dean, and I know Dean's family may be watching, but he had 3 shots to his head. And in my experience, and obviously going back talking about the medulla shot, and I said to you, the first 2 shots is a natural instinct of a double tap, bang, bang. And I think that was in the temple. And then there was another shot either to the forehead or to the back, which would suggest to me that almost to seal the brotherhood of the other person, that somebody's then fired a single shot. The 3 shots I don't think was fired by the same person. I don't think it was fired by the same person.
Right, okay.
Because why would you do a double tap and then fire another shot? You wouldn't. A double tap would be enough in the head to kill somebody. So I think to seal the brotherhood of whoever was there that night, and we know Damon was there because one, he admits it, and secondly, his phone put in there, fired the shots to...
So that's the thing. Damon was there, his phone was there, he admits he was there. How the fuck can you then go, all you got to do is just say it to someone else and you can go on your merry way. Like, it's bizarre, isn't it?
It's extremely bizarre.
And I don't think the public obviously realise this stuff actually goes on in the background, because obviously unless you know the people, then it's talked about in your area or whatever, it's very hard to believe this stuff goes on, right? But it does.
Yep.
So what did you do after that trial finishes? You go on, do you do more trials like that? Is that your now new position, or do you...
No, we would go about, I mean, I'd carry on doing crappie stuff or on the boats, or do covert vehicle driving around Essex in big fast cars with a safe load of machine guns and stun grenades and things, and just waiting for a tactical firearms job to come in for us to then go and deal with. So that's...
Did you enjoy it?
I did enjoy it. There was a lot of good people I worked with. Some have passed since through heart attacks or whatever, but there was some good people there. But when you're firearms, you're very carpole visioned, as in, you think that we're always right, but actually that's not always right. Obviously, I've become friends with you. I've got other friends now, and I've seen the other side, and I'm experiencing, I'll say the word, corruption of what's going on. And I've heard many stories. I'm not going to go into details, but I know of people, police officers, that have been paid off thousands to get rid of tapes so people don't get convicted of an offence.
Yeah.
And you think, that's what a book's made of.
Yeah.
But I know for a fact that's happened because I talk to these people now.
Yeah. So what's it like being... All right, so again, I'm not going to go into massive detail because I know there's ongoing things. But again, and I would love people's comment on this. I really would. Not just on everything that you've heard so far, but really you're now let's be, I wouldn't say other side, because the other side sounds like you've gone to being a criminal, which you're not. But now you're out of the police. And what's bizarre is, let's say 20 years ago, it's quite possible at that point we could have crossed paths at any moment. Yeah. I.e., you would have been trying to put me in jail.
I could have stuck an MP5 in your face, Matt.
I mean, I'm not a terrorist, but yeah, sure. Sure. But you get what I mean? Like that. So it's, and we met through a mutual friend. Yeah. And then you explained your story and your situation, and I was like gobsmacked. But not so much shocked, because obviously I know how it all works from both sides, because obviously I played cat and mouse for so many years, but unfortunately mine caught up on me once I was out of it. So, but again, you're out of it. What does it look like now that... Okay, so I guess the question I want to ask is, when you're in there with other police, it's a brotherhood, you all look after each other, okay? If they decide, for whatever reason, you're no longer welcome in the brotherhood, is it like friends when you fall out, like your friends stay with you, or in there do they go at you?
They go at you tenfold, 10 times worse than anybody else. They will push and push and push until they will get something on you. Right. So it's worse. So for an ex-police officer, they will push and push and push. And I think this has come about a lot with, who was that police officer during the pandemic, that Sarah Everard, we can't remember his name, it's respect for Sarah, who was then taken and raped and murdered.
That was the copper that did it, wasn't
That's
it?
right, yeah.
I remember this.
I think they that they still see us as going to give up the bad name of the police service. So they do really come on hard to you. Right. I don't mind saying it now. I know of people that have been approached and told, don't mix with him. Do you know what he's about? I'm not a bad person, Matt.
So you've never been a criminal.
Nope.
And now all of a sudden you're in a position where you've got your own, effectively your own brotherhood that you've worked with day to day, that are your friends while you're there. And then all of a sudden, like we were talking about earlier, conditioning, and once someone up there makes that decision that you're now a target, it's almost like they just go, no, you're a target, and we're gonna treat you almost worse. Would you say it was worse than
Without a shadow of a doubt. They
Right.
will push and push and push and keep on and on and on. And hopefully in the future we'll have other podcasts and we can talk about the other stuff. But no, they treat you really badly and they'll push harder. I know some of your viewers will be like, well, he deserves it, he's an ex-copper. But obviously...
There'll only be a handful.
Yeah. But,
It's fine.
do you know what? I've got
You'll get
fairly
more positive comments, I'm sure.
But I still now look after people in the private sector.
Yeah.
We can talk about that in a minute. But I have people, you know, I help people a lot. I give advice to people because that's the righteous thing. I generally care about people, Matt,
Yeah.
and that's what I did when I was in the police service, and I'll do that now. I'll always help people. But there is people up there that clearly don't like me, as they don't other police officers. We never know
This
why.
is in the police service, let's make that clear.
Yeah,
not
in the
just
police service. Yeah. But it's made me sick as a pig. I'm absolutely gutted what they do to you, because at the end of the day, me and other colleagues that you may have spoken to that served are the kind of people that you want out on the streets, that we will look after people. You know, if I saw an IED-born terrorist now running along and I'm in my car, I'm going to drive over him because I want to protect the people, because my children could be there, your children could be there. I'm never going to lose that.
But they come down harder on you for doing that, right? Would they?
Without a shadow of a doubt. Could you imagine? I mean, now I have to think about everything I do. For instance, the other day when I was driven into the back of by an uninsured driver, you know, I really, really, really had to remain calm, because I knew if I'd have got out and effed and blind and the bloke had effed and blind back, we're going to end up having a ruck. Yeah. I certainly ain't ever going to lose a ruck with anybody. I don't care who it is. But I don't want to go down that road anymore. Does that make sense? Because I know I'd have the book thrown at me.
I was going to say, because... And I experience this regularly. Once you're a target, you're a target. And it doesn't matter how you conduct yourself day to day. If it's your name and they're focused on that name, they'll make it... What is the... it's like tunnel vision, isn't it?
Carpal vision, yeah.
It's like, we'll make the narrative fit.
Yep.
So you effectively, is trapped a too strong a word? Do you feel a bit trapped? Feel a bit imprisoned by how you have to react?
Yeah,
behave?
I feel as though they're looking at me all the time. Yeah, I don't sleep properly at night,
right,
because obviously the constant, obviously there's things going on at the moment, but they come down harder on us, and people say that's rubbish, but it's a fact.
If you're part of the team, you're looked after and they make sure nothing happens to you. When they decide they're done and dusted with you,
you get it harder.
They'll effectively put more energy, time, resources into making sure they make your life hell. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, secure a conviction or make sure that you get charged to court. Yeah.
Which is it's just a dirty game.
It's corrupt.
Right. I'm glad you said it and I didn't.
Yeah, no, because in my opinion, it's there is corruption.
Which is a shame, because people that are looking to join are the same as you. You looked at it, saw a vision and went for it and thought, I'm going to do good. But you end up, and again, I'm not trying to tarnish the police's name in any way, but I can only talk from my own experiences and from people that I talk to now or come to me or whatever, and it seems like a very... What's bizarre for me is the pattern of behaviour of the system, I think. And when you're in there, you're conditioned. All the things they make arrests for against people, most of it they do themselves, but it's the system doing it. Controlling behaviour, abuse of power, you know, all of those types of things. And I'm not going on a tangent of like attacking the police. That's not what we're here for. We're talking about the story. But now you've seen and basically been viewed from both sides. You've experienced the whole package, really. Yeah. So what you used to do as a job and to what you thought was doing good for bad people to go away to help good people really isn't quite what it seems, is it?
No. And there's a number of cases now where you think, really, you know, but because you're led down the path to believe that that person is a baddie, you know, or for instance, when I was on CID after I was on Firearms, you know, we get him to admit it and then we'll get a caution out of that, because all they're bothered about is statistics and stats. They don't really care about the victim. They just want statistics.
Which is, you know what, it leads me to my next question. Intelligence. What do you think about intelligence?
They put out there what they want to know. There's other stuff they can hide up. And I've seen previous podcasts where, you know, if I, for instance, said today, phoned up Crime Stoppers 0800 555 111 and said, Matt Bray is doing X, I won't even put anything in there, because of who you are as a Tracksuit Millionaire, you'd probably end up getting a surveillance team when they start doing their work behind your back. And that's off the back of somebody just saying something on Crime Stoppers. Now, what people don't realise is Crime Stoppers, and we're going a slight tangent, is protected, and they will always say to you, can you give your name? No, I don't want to give them a name because I fear for reprisals. But that would be fed into the intel system. So if I had a problem with you, and then I got somebody else to say, I'll phone up about Matt, he's driving a car uninsured, for instance, you know, make it something that away from. Oh, okay. So then you'd start getting interest from the traffic division looking at you. All right, we're going to put a stop in and make it. So it is intelligence led, but it's only as good as the intelligence that's put into the system. So if you
basically anyone on this planet can ring up and say, or go in and say anything they want. It doesn't have to be proved, and that intelligence could be all false. Part of it could be false, or 80% of it could be, but maybe 1% could be true or 100% true. It's irrelevant.
Yeah.
But my point is, people can say anything and it doesn't help you, which is, and again, getting back to Ricky's case, I think that was where, again, intelligence, I don't believe to a certain point should be, unless it's proven intelligence, I don't think it should be used. I don't think it should be used across the board, because what people may not know is intelligence can be then used against you in family court. It can be used against you for...
And it will be.
And it will be. We won't go there this podcast, but we'll... Yeah, but that's the thing. Like, the system is flawed massively. And it's bizarre how anyone can say anything and it can be recorded and brought up over and over and over again, but the reality is there's no actual evidence of that.
So going back to Ricky's case, look at, if you was the SIO, the Senior Investigating Officer, and then you had it laid out on a plate that, right, I'm going to get Damon Alvin, he'll be the Supergrass, he'll go into a new identification, into the new identity things, sent off somewhere, living in this secret life. Ricky's in prison. They've dealt with allegedly serious problems of drug dealing and the kingpins within the south of Essex. So for them, it fitted the narrative through intelligence, as what we've said. Yeah. And if Damon hadn't have said anything and said, oh yeah, it was Ricky, then you'd have had both of those guys back out on the streets.
Yeah.
And then potentially, as they've seen it, or we can have a problem here, we've got Ronnie and Reggie, the young version of Ronnie and Reggie, running around, and they're going to make an empire.
Yeah.
So this is brilliant. We can kill, that old saying, isn't it? Two birds with one stone.
Yeah.
Let's get Damon. He's then gone into protective service with a new identity. Ricky's in prison. Lovely. Let's cut our crime rate down massively. Because obviously... You know,
the thing is, it doesn't though, does it? Because there's always someone second in line to take over.
Always. And whether Ricky was dealing drugs, people that were buying the cocaine still buy their cocaine off somebody else.
Just go somewhere else.
It doesn't stop.
Obviously, let's just clear that out. We're not saying Ricky sold drugs.
No, we're not.
But that's just something that was thrown out by Damon in court. And
Yep.
Blah blah. But you're right. There's never going to be a shortage.
No.
They take one, there's always someone else waiting to take that place. And so it's just, the system is a bizarre one that we have. For me personally, I don't feel like it does its justice. I think it would be better run by someone like, I don't know, Richard Branson. A business person. Like that actually, or someone that actually understands day to day. Because you know what, even I don't know if you're going to agree with this, but police take advantage of our taxpayers' money for sure. Like they'll have maternity leave, they'll have sick leave, and they'll use every angle. I'm not saying you've ever done this, but what my point is, it's another system that can be manipulated, and the problem is they go after from my understanding and my experience, they go after the wrong people. But hey, that's just my opinion on that matter. But moving on, so you're now out of the police force.
Mm-hmm.
You haven't had the best experience since you've been out to do with them. How do you deal with that day to day?
That's a good question. I don't sleep well.
Okay.
It troubles me. I'm always looking over my shoulder.
And this isn't fear from criminals, this is fear from police.
From the police, yeah. What is their next move? What is their corrupt next move? That's how I see it.
That's how you feel?
That's how I feel, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now you've gone from being part of a
Being
paternity...
a proud probation of the year, top person that I believe I could look after people. That's what I joined for, Matt, to look after people, generally look after people, not just say it because I want to put it on my CV.
Yeah.
I put myself in a lot of serious positions to look after people.
Do you regret joining now?
Hindsight's a good thing. I wish I'd stayed in the army. But again, it's hindsight. The police has made me the man I am today, and obviously the work, the little work that I do is as a result of stuff that I learned in the police and of the army.
Yeah.
So, but again, through what's going on in my life, I don't work full-time now. I don't need to work full-time. I get PIP for my PTSD. So, I just try and live day to day, a quiet life.
Would you... Let's just say the problems you have faced or encountered, if they didn't happen, do you think you'd still be in the police service, or do you think you would have walked away anyway?
I don't mind saying this. I was actually dismissed in 2019.
Okay.
And I was dismissed for allegedly selling police property. And one of those items was actually my crops, a leaf suit. I've never sold anything on eBay in my life, Matt. Never.
Sorry, I didn't know. Right, you was dismissed for selling police stuff
on eBay. That's what was the allegation. So I went to the CPS. They said there's no case to answer.
So there's no criminal case, but we're going to sack you anyway.
Yeah. Went to a tribunal, and on the balance of probability, it was police stuff. Now I'm not here to defend myself. I'm pleased I'm out. I don't want to be part of that. I'm so pleased I don't carry a gun now because of all the other things that's got on. I don't feel confident that if I shot and kill somebody, especially the headshot, that I'm going to get protected, as we know with what's come out recently. But yeah, I was, and it was my wife. I had a load of shit, and I'm a kit monster because of all my different skills from when I was in the army, boat, mountaineering, croppying, firearms. I've loads of stuff, and I love my kit. I'm a kit monster. That's what they used to refer to me as.
What does that mean? Sorry, what's a kit monster?
As in, I loved having all my Gucci kit, or the mountaineering kit, my crops kit, my marine kit. So when I finished on Firearms, I had a load of croppy kit, covert rural surveillance kit still, and the ex used to put. I've got to be careful, obviously, she used to put it on eBay to get some extra money because money was tight, and then obviously I got my house spun in a warrant.
For selling some shit. It's like selling a fucking tracksuit, right?
But it was my personal issue to me.
Right.
But yeah, on a balance of probability. And I'm not proud of that, and that hurts.
No, but look, the way I see it, and again, viewers may think differently if I voice this, but I clear out my shit all the time. I couldn't listen. When I clear my shit out, I don't sit there and think, am I going to sell something that could get me in trouble? It's a bit bizarre, but again, that leads me to: do you think once they've got it in for you, they're looking for something and anything will do?
Yeah.
Because surely, if you went, I'll give you the money. Like it can be okay. My point is this: it's resolvable.
If apparently, in hindsight, if I'd admitted it on interview, I would have probably had a final warning and kept my job.
Right.
But I refused to admit it because it wasn't even police-issued kit. It was my own kit. It was the kit that I had. And
Do you
it's-
think you'd ruffled feathers somewhere
yeah,
online?
I've ruffled feathers, and I think that's why what's happening there.
Because social media is a wonderful thing. Like, it's detrimental, but it's wonderful because obviously you get to read so many stories. And it's funny because I commented on something on LinkedIn the other day about something to do. A police officer had been sacked for, I think the lady that was promoting it, I'm not going to say her name because I'm not trying to promote anyone else on my podcast, but she was basically saying it's out of order. Like, what do you think of this? That lady been sacked for being rude, not being, I can't remember, politically correct. I can't remember how it was worded, but it's basically not being very nice to someone that was carrying a knife. Yeah, so she lost her job for not conducting herself in a way that the police force, I guess, sees she should have. But it was all based around the knife, yeah? So I commented and I was like, you know what? I agree with this comment. Like, I agree with everyone's comments. They were like, yep, good, like she should be. But it's social media is one thing. You're not informed, like, completely. So what I didn't know was someone posted after, like I'd said, like, I agree with the post. However, you know, there might be more to it. Like I was trying to dig in with you. There's more to it with regards to if they got something niggling them, they're going to find something on you no matter what. Like with Wayne, I think it was the pocketbook, you know, but they interviewed him over me for 3 days. But they sacked him because no, he left.
He left.
Sorry,
Yeah.
sorry, that's my bad. Make that clear. He didn't get sacked. He left because of the pocketbook or some bullshit. But my point is this. So I comment and I'm like, I completely agree with everyone's comments. If someone's got a knife, they should be able to do and speak however the fuck, because the adrenaline, But after that, under that, I've also put, but bear in mind, abuse of power is a wonderful thing and blah, blah, and it's not, you know, it's not right, and it's so often ignored and blah, blah, because people do put on a uniform and get brave, right? They think they have all this power and it can, and I do think it affects people differently. That's why I think, and I've made this public, a psychiatric test should be done on every single person, because fucking you can't just give everyone a badge and hope for the best. It don't work like that. But that's what we do. That's the system that's in place. But anyway, a lady commented to my comment about a week later, which was brilliant. She was like, Matt, I think she said something like, I agree with what you're saying, but check this out. The woman didn't even know he was carrying a knife. It was only once he'd been arrested they found the knife. So my view, my perception, I agreed with all these comments, but also expressed abuse of power as a common thing. Yeah. But the point, this woman made it very clear, and I just put back her laughing face, this is brilliant, because this is the point. We're all fed to believe that this woman's like that. Everyone's sticking up for her, like, oh, she shouldn't have been sacked because she's just doing her job. And part of me agreed with it at that point until I saw the rest of the documents, and it's like she didn't even know he had a fucking knife. So now again, it's people's perception, what we're fed, what we're told, what we're conditioned to believe. But what's the actual truth? So if that had gone as the real truth, like, no, actually she didn't even know he had a knife, the comments would have all been different from everybody. Do you see what I'm saying?
It fits the narrative, doesn't it?
And
then going back to what we're here for, that's what's happened in Ricky's case. With Damon saying what he said, that fitted the narrative. Two birds with one stone, brilliant. We've got Damon, he's now on the protected service thing with a new identity. Ricky's in prison, that is it. We don't have a problem anymore. We've sorted the problem.
So they think they've solved the problem because Ricky's gone for a long time. Damon's out there doing whatever Damon's doing under a new identity, loving life. And a police informant is killed. So has it changed anything? No.
There's no winners really, is there?
There's no winners.
Dean's gone.
Everyone's
Ricky's
family's
in prison.
affected.
Everybody's affected.
All because the system decided that you can now just be good grass and go, I don't know. I'd love people's feedback on this. I would, and I'm sure you would too. I would love to know what everybody thinks. Our system, is it right or is it wrong? Because
massively wrong. Because
it's just broken.
Well, ultimately as well for Dean's family, they've not got, like you. I picked
justice.
up. You said
his mum said.
Dean's mum says it's not Ricky.
Justice. It's not justice.
But they've not put Ricky to scene. I don't think they even got any ballistic particles, did they, from him or anything? I don't know this side of it because obviously I was looking after Damon.
So obviously I won't go into too much stuff that I know because this is about your story. But my memory isn't the greatest, but from what I remember about this, Ricky's hands were tested for ballistics, and it came back negative. It didn't have any powder, any gunpowder, no residue, none. It just, look, I think your story is fascinating. I'm so glad you came on. It took a long time, but I'm really, really happy you came on, and I hope the viewers loved that. Because I do think I'd like to get you and Wayne on together at some point. And again, I think we've both got some issues going on in the world.
I think that'll be another podcast as well.
Once that's settled and done, obviously, as you know, I'm revising the book, so we can add a few more bits to it. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on. And
thank you, Matt.
I really, really appreciate it. It's been a great story. So subscribe to Unlocked. And if you want to see and hear more stories like this and many other careers and overcoming obstacles, especially health-wise, mental health and chronic illnesses, subscribe, like stuff. Please comment, love some feedback, and hope you enjoyed it. Andy, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Matt.